Welcome one and all to Kings of War Battle Report. And of course, these are very strange times we're living in at the moment, so you're not going to see a huge amount of this kind of reporting from games that were played in person. Of course, this one was created before the lockdown came into effect. And a couple of points of business first. This game was actually live streamed as well, so if you want to look at one of the previous videos on this channel, if you feel like watching the entire game from start to finish, if you've got a spare 2.5 hours or so, then feel free to watch that first before coming back to this. But there are some people out there that don't have time to watch entire streamed games and would prefer to watch the slightly more concise version that this still image battle report will provide. And there are, of course, people who have literally hours and hours and hours of free time, and they want to watch both, because not only do they want the red hot sizzling live person-to-person action in full streamed form, they also want the after battle tactical analysis as well, which is what you're going to get here. So this is Abyssal Dwarfs versus Orcs, and to guide you through this voyage we have not only Mr. Arrow, who should be seated here, we also have me. Hello there. I've got my army list right here. So, in fact, another thing, before we leap into this battle report, I'll just let you look at the opening image there. So, as I said, this is the game that was live streamed, and you may want to watch both. If you just want to watch the live stream first, then you better head over there right now before you see any of the juicy tactical insight. One other point is that I'm looking into different kinds of content that can be churned out during these trying times, when it's not exactly easy to get an opponent in person to play a game. So I've been looking at streaming various PC games that are wargaming related, obviously. So it's possible that tonight there could be a live stream of Vermintide, me and Mr. Remington Steele, if we can get that all working properly in time. Hopefully that should be maybe around about 9 PM, we were saying. So we may be streaming that. I'm looking at other games as well. I've got a lot of them on Steam. There's the Space Hulk, there's Total War Warhammer, there's Space Marine, and not on Steam I've got Dark Omen as well, which would be an interesting one. A nice old classic game there. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And now let's get on with this game. So 2,000 points, and these are the tournament lists we were going to take to Clash at Kingston, which is obviously cancelled like all the tournaments over the next month or two. So we decided let's get our lists out anyway and just have a friendly game instead. And here is my list. So we'll go through my side first of all. By the way, it's the smoke and mirrors scenario. I'll tell you exactly what that means after I've gone through my list here. So we've got a unit, a horde of lesser obsidian golems there. We've got one of the mortars right here. We've got a troop of gargoyles, of course, and just seeing if I've put any upgrades on any of these units here. Nothing so far. Then we've got more lesser obsidian golems there. We've got an iron caster, and he has surge and heal. We've got a hex caster with weakness, which obviously combines very nicely with this big wall of defense 6 I've got. We've got the greater obsidian golem. We've got another mortar back here, another large, big, juicy, heavy mortar. We've got Bracky. We've got a regiment of half-breeds there, and they have the Pipes of Terror, which is going to be an interesting combo with Bracky and his Dread, of course. So those two abilities will be able to stack up nicely there. Then we've got a horde of Black Souls, and are there any more artifacts? There's not a lot in this list, actually. Not many artifacts at all. So I think that might be all of them. And then over on this flank, we have got Basusu. Susan out there on her own. And I'm going to go back to the wide shot here and talk you through the scenario now. So in Smoke and Mirrors, place 5 of the bluff tokens on your opponent's half, and then at the end of each turn, or the end of each round, you roll off to see who reveals one of the tokens on their side first to see how much it's worth. So it could be worth 2, could be worth 1, could be worth 0, and you'll find that out as the game goes along. And of course, you'll remember what you put down on your opponent's side, unless you don't, and you just forget, which people have been known to do. So, because we're talking about this from my tactical point of view, I can tell you pretty much where I put the tokens. I think I can remember. So I've put my 2-pointer, I think it is over here, behind the dice there. think my 2-point objective is there. There's a 1-pointer here, and there's a 1-pointer around this difficult terrain over here. So over on that side, I've just put a 0 there, and there's another 0 right on the back line, I think there. I think that's also 0. So the 3 on my opponent's side that I will want are very kind of close together here, as close as they can be, really in a bit of a straight line there. So my Black Souls, of course, aren't going to be able to claim any of those. They're looking like they're going to be too far away. So obviously it depends what my opponent has done as well, because you can see there are 4 tokens fairly close to the centre here on my side. I don't know how much they're worth yet, so I don't want to commit everything over here where there are valuable tokens and just leave my opponent with all the tokens on my side of the table. So this big piece of terrain makes it interesting as well, so I can push the golems up that side where there's a 1-point objective, push this big wall of meat here, along with my casters towards the 2 tokens that are here, which I know are worth something, and then I've got my half-breeds potentially looking for flanks, and the Black Souls is just going to chill out, because should I need to get to one of these tokens here to score, then they are going to be hanging around there, and Basuso is of course just going to fly off and cause havoc. So onto my opponent's list then. We've got a troop of skulks, we've got a regiment of Orclings, another troop of skulks there, we've got Malevolus, is that? And Steve in the chat already, hello there. We've got more viewers than that, so make yourself known, and if you've got any comments, feel free to drop them in there. We've got a horde of Great Axe with the Potion of the Caterpillar, so they're going to hit very hard, and they won't mind about being positioned behind these woods. We've got a Troll Bruiser with the Chalice of Wrath. We've got a Troll Horde, and I can't remember exactly what they've got right now, but those handy-dandy cards will show us when they come out a bit later. There is a Crudger on foot there. There is a War Drum, there is another Crudger on foot, there is a God Speaker right there with Bane Chant, and these 2 units at the front here, they are Morax regiments, and they have some very significant upgrades. This one's got the Brew of Strength, so these guys have a lot of attacks, so that's going to be very handy for them, and these ones I think have the Brew of Sharpness, so very, very tasty upgrades there. We've got some Trolls here with the Staying Stone, which is always handy for Trolls, and positioned around this snowy hill. And then out on this flank, we have a horde of Orclings and a regiment of Orcs. So we've got lots of Orclings to deal with, lots of units, not as many hordes as you would normally see in an Orc army. You'd normally see a lot more big, giant hordes like this, but there are 2 Troll hordes. So, more scoring units than I've got, though. Because I've only got, let's see, I've got the 2 Golem hordes, I've got the Black Souls, I've got the Greater Golem, and I've got the half-breeds and the gargoyles. I've only got about 6 scoring units. My opponent has, let's just have a quick count here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Twice as many scoring units in a game where there are lots of objectives you want to be on during the game. So that's a bit of an advantage for the Orcs in the scenario there. And see where the objectives are. So that one's worth 1. I know that because I placed it. That one is worth 2. That one's worth 1. My side, I don't know how much these are going to be worth yet. And on to turn 1. So the Abyssal Dwarfs get to go first, and it's a tricky one, but I thought, you know what, I want to actually get forward a bit faster here and get some shots off before the Orcs advance, because I've got 2 mortars to aim at them, and I don't want to get pinned back into a position where there aren't any juicy objectives. So even though the Orcs are probably better at combat than I am, I've got less fighter units than they do. I've got a lot more shooting capability with the mortars compared to just the skulks. But you can see my battle line has advanced, and immediately I've thrown Susan right up there into range to get charged, because there's only enemy chaff up there. So there's only the Orclings and the skulks that could charge Susan. The Orclings would be hindered, so it's possible they wouldn't do any damage, so they wouldn't even stop her flying. And the Orclings are so short that even if they do charge and stop her flying, she can easily just get round them, her nimble ability. Since she's individuals, you'd get a free pivot before the move as well. So it's not that easy to box her in. They're so short, and none of the other units around here can charge Susan there. Everyone else has just piled up. And for this game, I did actually remember that the Greater Obsidian Golem is speed 6 and not 5 for a change. so he's going to be moving a bit faster from now. The mortars, combined with the weakness spell of the Hexcaster, have aimed at one of the Orcs regiments and put 6 damage onto them. So that's a start, and it puts them kind of in the danger zone because they've got a war drum nearby, so that bumps up their nerve quite a bit. But if one of my hard-hitting units were to go into them now, I would expect them to kill them now that they're already on 6 damage. I don't think there's any healing in this Orc army, which is rare. And there's Susan. I mean, she's going to get charged by something probably, but she doesn't care because nothing there is going to really do any damage to her, and she's still in a position to join in the combats. Or just deal with the chaff, because there's no units in the middle that she would want to fight. She doesn't want to fight a big horde, or one of the Orcs regiments, or trolls, because they could, with a nice roll, take her out in one go. The Orc units in particular wouldn't even need a good roll to put her in real peril of dying in one round. So she doesn't want to fight any of them. So when you find yourself in that situation where you've got a unit, and it doesn't really have a particularly juicy targets, just keep it alive. Use it to hunt down enemy chaff maybe, keep it for the end of the game where you can possibly use it to block the enemy. But not the most useful game for Susan here, in terms of the army lists. Turn 1 for the Orcs. So, the Orclings here have pushed up towards my golems. They're in difficult terrain though, so I can advance without worrying about being charged by them, because what are they really going to do? They'll be hitting and wounding on 6s, I think, situation. Enemy units pushed forward here. A couple of the Orcs units. These dice are marking out my units' charge ranges. So they're not going to be able to get out of charge range of everything, because I've got fast-ish cavalry here. There's not a lot of speed in the Orc army either, you may have noticed. There's no Gakamak, there's no big flying beastie, no cavalry. And I've definitely got the speed edge, although most of the Orc units, there's some wild charge being thrown around. So I've got the edge with my cavalry and my gargoyles and my heroes, mounted ones and the flying ones anyway, but the enemy do have a slight speed edge over all my just regular ground-based units. The Skulks here have charged into Susan, which isn't much of a concern at all. The Orclings have chosen not to engage Susan at all, which actually makes it much easier for me to go away in that direction now, because them being sat right there in a blob could have limited who she could charge. She's only got so many pivots to work with and can't fly over them if she gets hurt. So, we'll see. And in the middle, this Orc horde here, this really tough Great Axe horde, have not advanced forward. Not going first, should I say. Which I'm quite pleased with, because I don't really want to fight them at the moment. I want to put off fighting them as long as possible. And the trolls have just gone in front instead. Who I'm less concerned about, because they are a potential target that could be killed in one hit with a lucky roll, or, for example, half-breeds would like their chances of possibly taking out trolls in one round. That doesn't mean I'm going to go for it, because it's very risky and there's lots of enemy meat nearby. So, any damage done here? 1 damage done to Susan. She can't fly, but that's fine, because she'll be able to just withdraw an inch and just look that way and use her nimble ability to charge anyone you want. And there's how the battle line is looking there. We flip over some tokens, and we've got a 1-point objective behind my Black Souls, so the one they were camping there just in case it was worth anything. We now know it is. And a 0-point objective that my enemy has flipped over on the left flank as I look at it. So Susan is just off down here somewhere. So 0-point objective there, and we're going to go into turn 2. So let's go back to the wide shot and show you what I'm planning here. So, these two units are incredibly powerful in combat. They've got expensive upgrades on them, lots of attacks, Bane Chant available, so I want to deal with them. So I'm going to charge into this one here, my half-breeds. That's going to hopefully take them out, and then everyone else is going to advance a bit, and I want to cover the flanks of my half-breeds as well. So I'm going to land the gargoyles somewhere around here, blocking in enemy units, and I think I actually choose to charge Bracky into the trolls as well, because there can't be any multi-charges really on him. No one can see through this troll horde that's going to be blocking the view of this horde here and the bruiser. So Bracky charge in there, and no one will be able to see him to help, so it'll just be the trolls there, unless they get out the way and someone else charges in. That's going to be tricky to pull off with the space available. And then I'm just going to put my Greater Obsidian Golem facing in that direction, because this Golem horde is going to move up and kind of act as bait for a charge from maybe the trolls. We shall see anyway. Turn 2. So, my golems have moved up into charge range of the Orclings. Not a concern at all, but I know this is worth a victory point, so I don't want to stray too far from here if I can avoid it. Half-breeds do steam into one of the Morax units and kill them off. I can't remember if it was the wounded unit or not, but the other unit is just sitting pretty there. The gargoyles have blocked in any threat to the flank of half-breeds there. Half-breeds could take a charge from the Morax there, which would undoubtedly kill them because they are kind of the glass cannon of the Abyssal Dwarfs. And here, I've done 2 wounds with Bracky onto the trolls, which is okay because no one can charge him. I think even if they withdraw a full inch, I don't think it opens up line of sight from the bruiser. Might, possibly, but definitely not this unit here. I don't think we'll be able to see. And Susan decided not to continue fighting the unit that charged her. She just flew over the top, or just not flying. In fact, she can't fly. She nimbled around the Orcling regiment and into the flank of these guys here, these skulks. 4 wounds, not enough to kill them yet, but this unit is closer to the action and closer to where the valuable objectives are, so I'm prioritising hurting them rather than the unit all the way out on the left. And so there's how it looks. And I was kind of regretting putting this guy facing so far that way. I could have had him facing forwards a little bit, because, as it is, I was thinking that maybe I wouldn't kill the Morax with the half-breeds. So I wanted him facing that way to charge anyone that charges into these golems, but I've got Surge available. I didn't need to have him facing so far that way, and what it meant was I couldn't afford to then overrun with the half-breeds to get out of the charge arc of the other Morax, which would have been a nice thing to do, but I couldn't do that because it would expose the flank of the greater golem there, so it's possibly a bit of a positioning mistake. The gargoyles are obviously open for multiple charges from things. I think the trolls might be able to get them, but it would require this unit getting out of the way, which is possible, but it's going to keep them out of the game for longer. And there's no guarantee that the only thing that could charge Bracky then would be and that he certainly wouldn't kill him in one. So there's going to be continued blockage in this region, which is nice because this is the most dangerous enemy. And another angle there, and on to turn 2 for the Orcs. So it's a double charge here. And I don't think, I was watching the live stream back, I'm not sure whether we actually gave the correct charging off a hill bonus to one or both of these units. Because looking at it from the wide shot there, I'm not sure if the trolls are 50% on the hill. It's hard to tell there because they're kind of slanted off the side of the hill. And units were sliding about on these hills a lot, so it's hard, I'm not sure whether they were actually on the hill or not. I know this unit is though, you can tell that, and I'm not sure whether we actually gave them the correct bonus for that. But anyway, double charge there, and then charge in the flank with the war drum into the gargoyles, and the Crudger into the half-breeds. And he's got a few attacks, so he could potentially do something to them, and at the very least he would be hoping to get rid of their thunderous charge next turn. And then these trolls do actually end up into the gargoyles as well, because this horde moves backwards, and then the bruiser into Bracky. And it was in the flank, so Bracky turns around a bit to face. So that unit's still out of it a bit. Obviously the gargoyle's going to die. Hopefully nothing else will. And no one's really worried about attacking Susan, it seems. These guys are moving up. And it's possible these golems could die. But they are inspired, of course, and they're unhurt. And I'm not sure whether we gave the correct bonuses here. This unit is also weakened as well by the Hexcaster from last turn, if I remember correctly. They were the unit that I didn't charge. So I weakened them, thinking that they were likely to live, and my mortars didn't take them out. And then we've got some shooting here from the skulks. 1 damage onto the Black Souls, which is not really annoying yet, but it's a start. You've got to start somewhere if you want to take out a big juicy horde. Bane Chant is cast onto these Morax, which counteracts the weakness that was put on them previously, if I remember correctly. And those 2 units combine for 11 points of damage on the golems, which is not an insignificant amount, and an average nerve roll would take them out, but of course it is inspired, so 2 chances at it, and they fail to kill them on, I believe, the 2nd attempt. So, that's nice. How is this going to change things? Well, I think this unit was probably going to die next regardless, whatever happened, because I've got the option of charging them with Golem and even charging them in the front. They're already on 7 wounds, so they're in the danger zone, as I call it right now. So even charging in the front, he would like his chances of taking them out next turn, regardless of whether they kill this unit and then turn to face him. I'd also have the option of surging him in, which would allow me to maybe shoot at them a bit first. These trolls are going to suffer as a result, though, because my golems are now going to be able to charge into them in the front. Work shouldn't kill them in one round. If I did kill them, that would be a huge bonus for this unit not dying. But if we can just do a bit of damage on them, that would be acceptable, and then this unit will go the round after that. But we've already started wounding the trolls, and if they don't regenerate it all back, we're in a better position to finish them off later. So, over here, the half-breeds take a couple of points of damage from the Crudger there. The War Drums turn to face that way because you can tell the Gargoyle disappeared. Of course, they died. They didn't get double wand. Bracky takes a few wounds as well from the Bruiser, but not enough to worry him significantly yet. And there's how it's looking. So what am I going to do now? Bracky, I actually have a bit of a dilemma with what to do with him, because he sticks around here. He's inviting charges from like this thing here, this big horde, and that would get them into the game fast. They want that, so Bracky's going to run away. And he's going to be able to withdraw from the Bruiser a bit. Then he gets his free pivot before declaring his move. So he pivots this way and then charges into this unit here, which the Greater Golem is also charging into. The half-breed's going to charge into the Godspeaker, because why not? Get rid of that Bane Chant ability, and it's the only thing they can see at the moment. And it's obviously a threat in terms of dishing out that Bane Chant. Golems into the Trolls, hoping to kill this unit, hoping to kill the Godspeaker. And we reveal some tokens. So we've got a 1-point objective on my side, which is this one here. So I don't really have any units that would be really handy to sit on that right now. Kind of need all my units at the moment. And we've also revealed a 1-point objective near the half-breeds, which is that one here. That's also worth 1, which is one I put down. So we already knew that one was worth before. And moving on to turn 3 for the Abyssal Dwarfs. So my golems charge into the little Orcling regiment, which were here. I don't think I even took a picture of them charging them, did I? Because they didn't do damage. But 7 wounds, double 1. Don't know what their nerve is, but it's not too much higher than that. And a very blurry picture of the Hexcaster here, but you can get the idea that I weakened those trolls ready for next round, and then did 5 damage to them. So it's not a huge amount, but it's okay. And here, of course, the Morax are dead as a result of Bracky and the Greater Golem in the flank, so he turns to face that way now. And the half-breeds kill the Godspeaker, which is nice, and then they turn back to face the imminent threats. And what do my 2 mortars do this turn? Well, they delete a horde of trolls, and I'll tell you where that horde was in a minute, because it's quite an important unit. In fact, let's just go back to the wide shot here and show you where those trolls were that were just mortared off the table unceremoniously. It's this horde here. So once everyone ends up in combat, there's enough space for it to see through there, and both mortars, I think I got 3 hits out of 4 and just obliterated that troll horde. So that is dead now, which is quite a significant loss for the enemy. An undamaged unit mortared off. The first real significant contribution the mortars have made, so it's a welcome one. Susan manages to finish off the skulks that were there. So we're chewing through the enemy scoring units here, but it's still an uphill struggle to get them all, because when it comes to the end of the game, I need a lot of my big units to survive here, because I need them to score points. Most of my units can't score objectives at the moment. But war machines and individuals running are no use at all. Turn 3 for the Orcs. So the Trolls go back into these Golems. They should be able to kill them this time. They've regenerated a wound as well. Even though they're weakened, they should still be able to finish them off. War Drum charges into Bracky. Over here we've got the Troll Bruiser and a Crudger charge into the half-breeds, so they could very well die. And the horde of Great Axe start moving up, getting ready to strike. They've not participated in the game yet, which I'm pleased about because they're the most killy enemy unit. The Orclings on my left flank charge into the Black Souls that are just chilling on this objective, which is okay. And the Skulks have positioned themselves a bit into the flank there. So there is a hindered flank charge open to them potentially next turn if I don't get rid of that unit. And Crudger decides to have a go at Susan, try and stop her flying perhaps. And over here, the Orclings go back in and do 1 damage to my golems, which is always embarrassing whenever you take wounds from something so feeble. And these golems do get killed this time, as you'd expect. They are finished off by the trolls, and the trolls are now turning to face this way, into the rear of the greater golem. Not much accomplished there. I think Bracky takes 1 more wound from the war drum. And this is not good for the Orcs here, because the Troll Bruiser and the Crudger only waver half-breeds on 6 wounds, so you'll see how that leaves them positioned in a minute. I think there's just 1 extra wound done here from the Orclings onto the Black Souls. And Susan takes a teensy bit of damage from the Crudger as well. So, the fact that the Bruiser has only wavered half-breeds there means that he's now a potential target. I could surge this guy forwards and possibly attack one of those units now. Maybe get to the flank of the Bruiser. Very tempting. And that would almost certainly kill the Bruiser if I could succeed with that. But it does leave me open to this Horde here as well, which is quite a scary prospect. This unit of Orclings here are a bit of trouble as well, because I do have to worry about them potentially getting a flank on something later. And this horde of golems are tied down by this regiment of Orclings, so I'm hoping to clear them out next turn though. And same for this horde here as well. Matthew, greetings. Just tuning in to see this battle in non-moving images analysis in force. Yes. And we revealed some more tokens. So we found the 2-point objective on my side of the table, and it's this one here, right in the middle. So I don't have that many units around here that can actually score. How many have I got left? 1, 2, 4. Half-breeds will not survive the game. It's almost impossible because they're so easy to squish. So I need all my 3 other units, which are very tough, to survive the rest of the game. I'm going to score lots of points anyway. And there's a 1-point objective revealed on my opponent's side, which is all the way out on the flank, which is why these golems are there in the first place, so I already knew about that one. So 1 point there. This 1-point objective is looking like no one really wants that too much at the moment. There's 2-point objective revealed there now. The other 2-point objective is here, but that hasn't been revealed yet. Turn 4. So, my Golem Horde chew through the Orcling regiment this time, finish them off and just chill out on this objective for now. And Bracky charges into the horde of Orclings just to lock them in place, because they're unlikely to kill him, and Bracky can't score. So, might as well just tie them up for a turn, so that these guys can come in and steam into their flank next turn. And over here, my half-breeds are just backing up to get out of the charge arc of the horde of Great Axe, which are just behind the tower here. Do not want to be attacked by them. Just backing away. Then the Black Souls back up a bit. Oh, actually, they kill the Orclings, and then I think they might back up onto this objective or just rotate a bit. But I'm not worried about exposing my flank to the Skulks, because I do. They're Skulks. And Susan actually charges into those Skulks as well. Does 1 damage and she actually wavers them, which is nice. So there's how that is looking. And it's looking quite tasty there. You'll notice that this big guy has not charged into the flank of the Bruiser though. So I decided, you know what, that is a bit risk I don't really feel like taking right now. So the Hexcaster weakens the Bruiser, because he's obviously going to be charging the half-breeds next turn. And this guy, I think he took out one of the characters around there. Is there someone there? Let's have a look. Let's go back. I think there might have been an individual. There was there. I don't know. Or, let's just go forward again, because I can't remember exactly what I did with him. Let's see. Have the trolls. Okay, yeah, the trolls, yeah. He's moved backwards. So he turned around and was surged into the trolls and managed to finish them off, which is very nice. And because he was surged in, I was also able to shoot at them first. And I can't remember whether I did a bit of damage with that as well. But weakened the Bruiser, which is nice. He killed the trolls, which is very nice as well. So there are no trolls left apart from the Bruiser up there. And enemy scoring units, what have I chipped away at them down to now? We've got the Orcling Horde there, which are not long for this world. The Troll Bruiser, there's that gigantic, terrible horde, and there's the Skulks, which are in terrible danger. So we've got 4 scoring units left each. So I've managed to completely even the odds now in terms of the scenario scoring. It was 12-6 at the start, and now it's 4-4. I've got to be pleased with that. That was the objective, take out scoring units where possible. Turn 4 for the Orcs. So we've got a double charge on Bracky here. And I suppose you might as well just go for whatever target you can potentially take out. So Orcling Horde in the front, Wardrum in the rear. These Orcs are staying out of charge range of my Black Souls, but ignoring them because they want to go for the 2-point objective that's down here. So they're not too worried about my Black Souls. They're not in range, and they've also got an individual here who could potentially park in front of them to block them for a turn as well. So we'll see what they get up to next time. Over here we've got a double charge again onto the half-breeds, the weakened Bruiser and the Crudger, but this time they do manage to kill them. They only did 2 extra damage because of that weakness on the Bruiser, but that was enough to take them out. So they are dead, so I'm down to 3 scoring units now. And Bracky isn't going to suffer too much in that combat, and in fact that's the end of that turn. There's not that much for the Orcs to do at the moment because they're running out of units. I've killed an awful lot so far. They've got 4 scoring units left, and I've only got 3 though. So I could end up almost tabling my opponent and still not winning the game based on scoring units. So we'll see what I can do though next turn. We reveal a couple of 0-point objectives now, which aren't going to affect much. And turn 5 for the Abyssal Dwarfs. So, in the flank of the Orcling Horde, in the front with Bracky, actually I think Bracky countercharged the Wardrum and killed the Wardrum, and then this unit went into the flank of the Orcling Horde and killed them. They're sitting on that 1-point objective now. The 2-point objective is up there, but it hasn't been flipped yet, so only I know how much it's worth, although I think my opponent can work it out at this point, because it might be the last one that hasn't been flipped over. Greater Obsidian Golem into the Crudger, which is in front of the Troll Bruiser, and I think this time I did go for, it may have been a surge to get in there, I can't remember, but I decided to go for it because it puts me outside the charge arc of the Horde of Orcs here, so I decided to risk it. And I think I was going to try and overrun past the Crudger, but I didn't get enough wounds on him to finish him off this turn. So, another flank from Susan into the Skulks and some more damage on them, but no waver this time, so that means they're open to charge the flank of the Black Souls next turn if they want. The Black Souls, instead of turning to face them, this turn have moved forwards to threaten this horde of Orcs here, staying out of their charge arc and putting themselves in a position where the enemy can't just ignore me now. They have to either actively move away or do something to block this unit in, unless they want to get charged in the flank. And if they turn to face me, they're ignoring this very valuable 2-point objective right here. And they know that one's worth 2 as well. So these 2 objectives here could be where the game is won and lost, because we don't have many scoring units left. And turn 5 for the Orcs. So, Skulks do flank the Black Souls, and this Crudger is just parked in front of them. I don't think he actually charged them. I can't remember actually, because the hill was there, so he may well have charged as well. I think he was sliding off the hill. So we'll see how much damage those 2 units can do here. The Great Axe Horde are advancing this way, and they're really threatening my Greater Obsidian Golem now. They've decided, you know what, we need to actually win this fight here, because this guy kills the Bruiser, we're running out of scoring units, and the enemy have very tough units left, is what I'm guessing is going through my opponent's mind here. And the Bruiser and the Crudger, I think the Crudger's alive anyway, and double charge into this guy. See that the Bruiser is weak, so keep weakening him with the Hexcaster, and it's also the potential to do damage with the Hexcaster as well, which is very nice because it's something like the Bruiser, it's not that difficult to waver him, so just 1 or 2 points of damage and you can be staring at a one-way ticket to Waver Town. So the Black Soul Horde is up to 8 wounds now, and because of the way this guy has positioned himself, I'm not sure whether I've got enough room to fit in front of that unit now, countercharge, so I may end up sliding further down. We'll get to that in a minute, see how they... Because had this guy positioned himself, like here for example, it would have forced me to slide down that way a bit, countercharge them. which in this scenario would have actually been good for me because it would bring me closer to this objective, which is where I want to be. I don't want to get stuck far away from it. And a bit of damage done there, I think, from the bruiser, but not a lot. And so that's how it's looking at the end of turn 5. So we're going to reveal the final tokens now. Obviously a 2-point objective there, which we already knew about, and another 0, which is nowhere near anybody. So turn 6, so potentially my final turn, and I actually make a mistake here. Because, ignore this guy, because he moved later. This unit of golems here, I decided I need to get on that 2-point objective rather than the 1. So I moved them onto the 2-point objective. But you'll notice he has also ended up here. That's because he was fighting here, and my thinking was my opponent could charge into this guy, kill him, and then overrun, and have a horde ending up right here. And then if there's a turn 7, they could quite possibly kill my golems in one round, that horde. They are that hard hitting. And I didn't like the sound of that at all. So I decided I wouldn't let them have a potential overrun. I was going to run away with this guy. Because when I say potential overrun, I mean that 2 ways. One, if they killed him, because if I were to charge into the bruiser again and not kill it, then obviously I'd be exposing my flank there. So they could overrun through the unit that I've parked in front of them, and then into him, and then they could overrun in this direction, which would bring them closer to this valuable 2-point objective. So I charged them with Bracky as well, because otherwise they would be in range to charge his rear. But because of the distances involved now, they can't kill Bracky and then overrun far enough to get to him. So he's safe, but I did that after the plan for the lesser golems down here. So I've actually got them both sitting on a 2-point objective now, which could cost me a win, because those guys should have just stayed on the 1-point objective, at least within range of it. They could have stayed, let's have a look, they could have stayed here, so they were within 3 inches of that one, but also in range in case I need to get them on this one if there's a turn 7. But because I moved them first, and I wasn't really factoring this guy in with this objective, I didn't realise I was going to be able to get him within 3 of it, so it just didn't enter my mind at all. So I've got doubling up there, which is a mistake. And here, Bracky is just holding them up, don't expect to kill them. Hexcaster is going to be weakening the horde as well, which makes them even less likely to get through next turn. They do hit very hard, so they could easily kill him. Black Souls managed to kill the Skulks on the countercharge and then pivot round, which is going to leave them within 3 inches of this objective here. I did check on that before I declared the countercharge, just to make sure I wasn't going to accidentally leave myself out of range in case there was no turn 7. And what's my opponent going to do? Well, because I kind of had that tunnel vision about my opponent coming over here, trying to win, I didn't factor in that my opponent could actually try and look for a draw now. Because I have a 1-point objective and a 2-point objective. My opponent has a 1-point objective there with the bruiser, and can actually shuffle sideways onto this objective here, and a 2-pointer. So my opponent can actually play for a draw if the game ends on turn 6, which is something I didn't factor in my mind. If you're watching the live stream as well, if you watch that, then don't know whether you got the impression that that surprised me. Obviously that's a mistake there, but it just didn't enter my mind at all, the idea that my opponent could go for a draw by going sideways and getting within range of this one. Now that would have been potentially not easy to stop necessarily, but it could have been stopped by just moving, for example, the Hexcaster closer to them. If he'd moved beyond the woods slightly. I'm not sure. Let's go back and see where the Hexcaster actually was before to see whether that was possible. Because he could block them up from moving sideways. There he is. He's already there. So I think he could definitely reach that point there. He's speed 5, so he could stop them going sideways very much at all. So it was definitely easy to prevent that play. It just wasn't in my mind at all. So that's why I didn't do anything to try and counter it. But my opponent now does have that option of going for the draw. So with turn 6, he actually does go for it. And of course, he wouldn't have been able to go that far if the Hexcaster had parked somewhere. He wouldn't have been able to within an inch of him. And the Troll Bruiser there is just sitting on a 1-point objective. So at this stage, it's looking like a draw. The Crudger decides to charge into Bracky. Why not? And this Crudger just goes for them, because they're already wounded, so you never know. A couple of wounds and a high nerve roll, take them out, it's worth a go. So if the game ends here at the end of turn 6, it's actually going to be a draw now because of this. mistake there with the positioning, and also allowing this unit to move sideways. When it's something you don't think of though, then you don't take steps to block it. But thankfully there is a turn 7. So crisis averted, which means that I can turn this unit round, surge them forward back onto this objective, and I needed 4 out of 8 to do it, so of course it was stressful. I measured before attempting the surge, and I got exactly 4, so they weren't stuck in no man's land. They do end up on this objective. And look at that. So you can see this unit is actually tilted up at the moment, so that is actually under the base. And this guy is just chilling out on the hill on the 2-point objective. These guys have a go at trying to kill the Crudger and are within 3 inches of that objective. So at the moment I'm in a winning position, so my opponent needs to actually kill something to get rid of me from the objectives now. And we'll see what happens. My mortars put some damage onto the Horde, and it's also been weakened by the Hexcaster as well. But it's not going to affect too much since I didn't kill them. Turn 7 for my opponent. He's just camped in on this 2-point objective after charging the Hexcaster and killing him, I think. Let's have a look. Where was he? Yes, they could just see him. They charged him. Got the 2-point objective. So that's nice for them. Crudger trying to finish off this Horde again, which could of course change the score as well. Oh yeah, that is ignoring the fact that I actually killed the Bruiser last turn with Bracky as well. I think it was Bracky and Susan both teamed up in the previous turn to kill the Bruiser, so nobody's scoring this 1-point objective now. So my opponent would have needed to kill multiple units to win, which is nice. Or to get a draw even. So that's going to be the end of the game then. So my opponent unable to shift any of my units that turn, doesn't manage to kill the Horde, so they're scoring. This unit's scoring, so just in this area my opponent's leading 2-1, and of course I've also got the Golems here on a 1-pointer and the Greater Golem on a 2-pointer. So that is a 4-2 victory for the Abyssal Dwarfs, and that is the end of that, and that's going to be the final battle report from an in-person game until the whole worldwide pandemic situation is either resolved or back on track and the warnings have been softened. So, obviously it was going very well that game. Most of the plans I attempted came off. I killed just lots of scoring units repeatedly over and over, and that was the plan, not leave my opponent with too many units with which to score, because I've only got 6 to start with. And at the end of the game, there were bound to be 6 out of 10 of the tokens were going to be worth something, and I've only got 6 scoring units. And because I'm against Orcs, and they hit so hard they can potentially kill my units in one go, and that forced me really to throw my gargoyles away to block in an enemy unit to prevent them getting flanks and whatnot on me. So the gargoyles would have liked to just stay alive in a game like this, but because the enemy units were so powerful and hard-hitting, I didn't think I could justify leaving them in reserve when I could use them to block somebody. And that means that I didn't have many units left to score with, so it ended up being way closer at the end than it should have been if I hadn't made that mistake. There was also some good timing from the mortars. On average, I think they hit slightly less below average during this game, but when they did hit, it was crucial because they took out a troll unit right here that didn't get a chance to do much at all. It just killed the gargoyles, I think, and that was it. That troll horde being killed by the mortars made them definitely worth their points for the game. And apart from that, they didn't do too much. Susan and Bracky, who I've experimented taking them out of my 2,000 point lists because I've been trying the the Overmaster on the Ancient Winged Half-Breed, and I didn't think I could justify having him, who's already 300 points, plus 2 200-point individuals running around as well, or even just one of them is still getting really expensive at 2,000 points. So I wanted to try him, and mixed results with it. Bracky and Susan have had overall very good results over the course of quite a few tournaments with them and lots of games now. So I would like tournaments to be at a higher points level though, because I've got so many models, and especially with the grotesques, which will be arriving very, very soon, hopefully. They're about to be released. Then I'm going to need higher point level to actually fit in all the models that I like, which is the goal with this army, was to just put out all the units that I think look the best from my collection. So that's why I really like the Greater Golem, so you're going to see a lot of him. Very difficult to drop him because I really like how he looks. The Ancient Winged Half-Breed I think looks really nice. Probably my favourite model in the army so far, but he's more likely to be left out at 2,000 points because it's just difficult to fit everything in at that level. At anything above 2,000 I would always try and fit him in. At 2,500 or more, then he can definitely stay in there, and he can even be accompanied by either Bracky or Susan as well at that point, if not both of them. So, Steve says, nice game, mate. Yes, it was a nice game, and if you haven't already watched the full live stream of it, it is available on this channel as well. If you've watched both, then let me know the subtle differences, maybe things you didn't pick up in one that you did pick up in the other. Drop those in the comments as well. Any thoughts on the lists involved? The Orc list I felt was lacking in speed. The Wild Charge aside, there wasn't much that could outspeed me, and that's usually something that concerns me with Orcs, because they're really hard hitting, and if they can get to you fast as well and threaten your units early on, then it makes them more of a concern. As it was, I was able to actually go forwards into areas where I was going to look for objectives later on, and still have time to shoot up the enemy before they got to me. And I was able to stay out of charge range quite a few times of various units and get out of arc of all sorts. When there's somebody like Gakamak, for instance, running around, can't really avoid him. He can basically charge what he wants. So difficult to deal with him. A big flyer would have been something for me to worry about as well, because of the low speed relatively of all these units. I was able to leave flanks open quite a lot because I was then able to block off units that could have taken advantage of those flanks and rears. With a big flyer, it would have limited me much more with where I could angle my units if it was threatening me. And Susan doesn't really want to be chasing big, heavy flyers around because she's not going to win a fight against them usually. They often have Crushing Strength 3, which is just going to eat through her a couple of turns, you would think, so she doesn't want to be doing it. In this game, Susan was really just deployed against Chaff because there wasn't a juicy target for her. She wouldn't mind perhaps going after trolls, but all the trolls had backup in this game. So maybe it wasn't that necessary to deal with the enemy chaff, but it did mean they didn't have anything to go for objectives with later on. And in fact, most of the enemy chaff was deployed on this side, where there wasn't really any objectives worth anything anyway, apart from this one, which my horde was on, and that wasn't really going to be shifted, unless some of these units had survived to actually reach them. These trolls being mortared off meant nothing could come over here and help, because this horde was required in the middle, this 2-point objective. So all in all, if that horde had gone after my horde, though, and killed it, and just taken that objective off them, which is very possible, then that could have changed the outcome of the game, depending what other units did. But overall, worked out quite nicely for the Abyssal Dwarfs, and look at the beautiful thumbnail here. Any more thoughts before I wrap this one up? So, I'm going to try and do some more video content though during this period of isolation for many people, hopefully to give people something to sink their fangs into and enjoy the sweet, sweet, tender, succulent juices of my channel. And that's going to involve there's some solo game options I've been looking at that could involve audience participation. For example, there are some scenarios in the Dead Zone, is it the Dead Zone Nexus Psi book? That's been made available for free on the Mantic website at the moment. So I've downloaded that, and I'm going to have a look through there to see if I want to do any of those zombie scenarios. There's also the option that I could just come up with something on my own as well, play that with audience participation, featuring the Dead Zone terrain that I've got and some zombies. I could get a nice overhead shot, and I could try and feature it mostly on the upper levels, but I've also got the second camera which I could bring to show what was going on underneath the board as well, because I've got the basement zone on my Dead Zone table. So that's going to be something I'm looking at doing as well. There are other things I can do, and I'm going to be live streaming some wargaming based PC games as well, if you're interested in that. Hopefully doing some Vermintide tonight with Mr. Remington Steele, which should be nice. We've also got Vermintide 2 as well, which we'll move on to after that. And I'm also pondering the likes of Warhammer Dark Omen, which is the old strategy game, which is probably my favourite Games Workshop related computer game of all time. So I would like to play that again on stream. I think people find that interesting. Nice old school one. And then there's the newer stuff, There's various Space Hulk games that I've got. There's Space Marine, there's Total War Warhammer, which is a bit more drawn out, so that's very difficult to stream. You're looking at tens and tens of hours for a campaign, for example. But plenty to sink your teeth into, hopefully, over the next few weeks, so keep your eyes peeled. And don't forget to check out all the links in the description. There's a link to the battle mat that I use for this game. And you'll always find that in my battle reports there's always a link to the mat that was used. Don't forget to check out all the social media, my Facebook group if you want to keep an eye on what I'm doing. And it'll keep you updated on videos as well as hobby stuff. And if you want to post in there anything that's relevant to my output, that's welcome as well. There's also Twitter down there. There's various fundraising sources. If you want to give me all your money on Patreon during these tough economic times, then feel free. And I think, oh, actually, one more final thing. Speaking of money, I got one of my every so often YouTube, Google AdSense payments the other day, which with my channel, I don't get a huge amount from it, obviously, because it's not a vast channel. And my videos don't get thousands and thousands of views mainly because I'm not doing much on GW products at the moment, but it does lead to the occasional money deposit coming up now and then. I think I get 1 or 2 payouts a year. It only pays out when it reaches $100, so not very often for my channel, but that did come in, so I immediately thought, what should I buy with this? And I looked at the Mantic website, and they have an isolation box, it's called. If you go on their website and search isolation box, you'll find it. It's £30. I don't know how much it is in any other currency, or whether it's available in other regions as well. But it's just a random assortment of Mantic stuff, just miniatures, terrain, and all kinds of things, packed into a box, basically. So as soon as that arrives, I'm going to unbox that live. I thought that'd be a good video, which is part of the reason I bought it. Also, it might have something useful in there, and even if it doesn't, I know enough people in the community who play all the Mantic games, so if I can't use most of the models in it, I'm sure there are people out there that would either be willing to swap things, or I might sell some of them, or just give some away as well. We'll see, it depends what I get, but hopefully there'll be something in there I can use. And that is actually the end of the video now. Matthew is very excited about the additional content. Keep your eyes and ears, well, don't keep your eyes to the ground, keep your ears to the ground, keep your eyes peeled, keep your nose primed and ready to sniff out that juicy, succulent content, which of course leaves an aroma on the internet that is most pleasing. Okay, time to wrap this one up. All that remains to be said really is, good night out there, whatever you are, and wash your damn hands.